What's up YouTube and how's it going? On today's video, we're going to find out if the TeraFlex Premium HD drag link in tie rod, we're going to fix the floppy steering in my Jeep Wrangler. Well, guys, spoiler alert, I already know the answer to that question. And the reason is because I already have the parts installed on my Jeep and I've had some time to test them out. Before I go ahead and share those results with you guys and answer the question of whether the TeraFlex Premium HD drag link and tie rod will correct the steering in my Jeep Wrangler, I want to go ahead and cover two things. First, I want to go ahead and tell you guys why I needed to replace the drag link and the tie rod. Then I want to go ahead and show you guys how I installed it. The reason is because if you are in the market for either a drag link or a tie rod, you can actually use today's video as an instruction video to see exactly how to install these parts. Either you can get a good understanding of what it takes, or if you're brave enough, you can even go ahead and do the installation yourself following this video and save yourself some money. Before I explain why I needed to go ahead and upgrade these components, let's first explain what these components are. So the drag link and the tie rod are the two main components that control the vehicle's steering. The drag link is this bar right here. It is connected to the pitman arm up under the engine. It comes down at an angle and connects to the passenger knuckle. This bar basically connects the steering wheel to the wheels on the ground. So when you turn the steering wheel, that's going to turn the steering box. That is then going to either push or pull the drag link to direct the wheel in the direction you want to go. As you can see, the drag link is actually only connected and controlling the passenger wheel. To control the driver one, this is where the tie rod comes into play. The tie rod is this bar right here. It is connected to the passenger knuckle and it comes across the vehicle and connects to the driver knuckle. What happens is when you turn the steering wheel, that's going to push or pull the drag link, and then that is going to push or pull the tie rod to control both wheels and point them in the direction you need to go. So the reason that I went ahead and upgraded these components is because over the last 6 months, I felt like my steering has become a little bit sloppy. It feels loose and a little bit floaty when driving a straight line. I've noticed a little bit of vibration when decelerating. Also, when hitting bumps or grooves in the road, the steering would kind of do whatever it wanted and didn't really follow the direction of the steering wheel. Also, in general, the steering wheel was just a little bit unresponsive. There's a little bit of a dead space in the middle. If I wanted to turn a little bit, I actually had to turn a lot and then vice versa. So correcting the steering wheel, there was a lot I had to do to keep the vehicle driving in a straight line. These three factors have kind of just led to a general lack of confidence in the factory components and has created a desire for me to have a tighter steering. The reason I feel that this has happened to the vehicle is for two reasons. First, I feel like the joints have prematurely worn out. Wear and tear is normal on the tie rod and the drag link, and if you have your vehicle for a long period of time, eventually you do need to replace those. But for myself, I only have about 75,000 miles on it. And I think that's a little premature for those joints, but I did remember that for majority of those joints, I have been running heavier, larger size tires. And because of that, that has been extra forces being applied to the joints every time you hit a bump or a groove in the road. It's more pulling on it. And that probably has been a culprit of the premature wear. Another thing that's probably led to the premature wear is that I've become very confident with my Jeep and I like to flex it out from time to time. And flexing it out is also putting those joints at extreme angles. And when doing that, you're stressing them out, which is wearing them out. So extra weighted tires and playing with the Jeep has all led to premature wear in the factory joints. Along with the joints, the next reason I think this is also happening is because of deformation. Deformation might not be the right word, but what I mean by that is the flexing that was occurring in the factory bars. If you notice, the factory bars are really thin, especially compared to these, and that means that the bars are not that strong. And because the last 6 months I've been running 40-inch tires, I believe the bars can't handle the extra weight, and the deformation has been extreme and has led to the lack of control in the steering wheel. Yes, some of you are probably sitting here going, yeah, of course, you need to replace tie rod and the drag link if you're running 40s, which is true, but honestly, I just didn't have it in my budget at the time, and the factory components did just fine with the 40s. But honestly, if you are thinking about it, you could probably get away with it for some time, but eventually you do need to go ahead and replace them to make that steering a little bit firmer. So now that you understand why I had to go ahead and upgrade these components, let's go ahead and take a look at the installation of these parts. The first step of the installation is to grease the ball joints. Once that's done, you're going to install the grease Zerk rubber plug. Then you're going to go ahead and install the dust boot retaining spring. Then go ahead and repeat that process on the other end of the drag link. To remove the old drag link, the first thing you need to do is disconnect the sway bar and links. Starting on the driver's side, what you're going to do is you're going to remove the 18mm nut and bolt on the bottom of the link. On the driver's side, you're simply going to go ahead and remove a single 18mm bolt. Then you're simply going to go ahead and secure the links up out of the way. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the drag link from the pivot arm. To do this, you're going to loosen the 21mm nut. This is not going to release the drag link from the pivot arm. To release the drag link from the pivot arm, we need to go ahead and either use a ball joint tool to remove it, or what I did here is you can go ahead and apply some downward force to it and hit the side with a hammer to pop it loose. Then you remove the nut fully and the drag link will release. Then on the other end of the drag link, we're going to repeat the same process to remove it from the knuckle. Now we're going to install the new drag link. To do this, we're going to simply insert the knuckle end and secure it in place using the new provided 21mm nut. On the other end, we're going to simply do the same thing with the pitman arm, slide it up into place, and secure it with the, again, new 21mm nut. Then we're going to simply go ahead and tighten up those nuts. To do that, we're actually going to need to apply some upward pressure to prevent the joint from spinning while you're tightening up that nut. Then once tightened, you're going to go ahead and torque both of those nuts to 63 foot-pounds of torque. After that, we can go ahead and reinstall the sway bar end length. When you do that, make sure to torque the driver's side nut and bolt to 74 foot-pounds of torque. And on the passenger side, you're actually going to torque the bolt to only 59 foot-pounds of torque. Before we finish that, we're actually going to jump over to installing the new tie rod. First step is to remove the steering stabilizer. If you have the OEM steering stabilizer, all you have to do is remove the 18mm bolts that hold both ends of the stabilizer in place. For myself here, I have the Falcon steering stabilizer, so the process was a little bit different. I had to remove 3 bolts from the side that is attached to the axle, and then I believe an 18mm bolt from the side that is attached to the tie rod. If you have the OEM steering stabilizer, you also do have to go ahead and remove the OEM steering stabilizer bracket from the axle. To do this, you're going to remove 3 13mm bolts. The next thing I did was I went ahead and removed the OEM track bar bolt at the bottom of the axle. To do this, I simply removed the 21mm bolt. Then I went ahead and installed the new track bar stud. This is an 18mm bolt, and basically you're just going to get this kind of snug. You actually don't want to go ahead and tighten this until the Jeep is on the ground. Now we can go ahead and remove the old tie rod from the axles. To do this, there's 2 methods. One, you can simply go ahead and loosen up the 2 21mm bolts on each end of the tie rod, and then simply go ahead and tap the side of the knuckle with a hammer, and that should make the tie rod drop down, and then you simply remove the nut. Or you can do what I did here, which was simply just apply some downward force while undoing the nut. Now we're going to go ahead and assemble the new tie rod. The first step is to prep the ball joints. This is the exact same as what we did on the drag. All you have to do is grease the ball joints, install the grease zerk rubber cap or plugs, then install the dust booth retaining springs. Again, repeat this on both ends. Once those are ready, we can now get into the steps for the assembly. First thing we're going to go ahead and do is spin the bolt all the way to the end closest to the ball joint. Then we're going to apply some anti-seize because this part is an adjustable part, which we don't want it to seize up over time. Then we're going to take one end and simply insert it into the rod. We're going to tighten that all the way until the rod hits the nut. Then simply go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. Now that we have the rod assembled, we can now go ahead and adjust it to make it the same length as the stock tie rod. To do this, you're going to simply lay it on the table and then go ahead and simply spin the middle until the lengths are the same. This doesn't have to be exact because it is going to be adjusted when you go to do an alignment. The reason we're doing it this way is because when you do it this way, what it does is it actually creates equal lengths inside the rod for each end. Once you have the length figured out or close enough, you're then going to simply go ahead and spin the jam nut to hold that position. Again, doing this on both sides. Now we can go ahead and install the new tie rod. To do this, you're going to simply insert it into the knuckle from the bottom up and secure it in place with the new 21mm nut. Then simply go ahead and do the same on the driver's side. Before we go ahead and tighten anything up, we want to make sure that the flat spots on the tie rod are facing upwards. Once they are, you can go ahead and hand tighten those jam nuts once again. Now we can go ahead and tighten up the 21mm bolts on both ends of the tie rod. To do this, you're going to have to apply some upward pressure to prevent the ball joint from spinning. Once tight, you're going to torque the nut on both sides to, again, 63 foot-pounds of torque. Then, if you have the OEM steering stabilizer, you're going to simply go ahead and follow the instructions they've provided. For myself, I had the Falcon, so the installation is a little bit different. The first thing you need to do is remove the bracket. To do this, you're going to put the bracket into a vise. You're going to simply heat around the bolt and then simply rotate the 8mm hex bolt clockwise. One thing to note is the stud should break loosely. If it doesn't, try heating it again. Then you simply continue loosening it until the stabilizer detaches from the bracket. Next, we're going to attach the new clamp to the stabilizer. To do this, we're going to apply some Loctite on the stud. We're then going to slide the provided O-ring over the stud, and then simply attach the new clamp to the stud. Once you have the clamp started, it's definitely easier to put the clamp into a vise like I've done here, and then go ahead and tighten the stud. Once tight, you're then going to torque it to 30 foot-pounds of torque. At this point, you should have the vehicle back on the ground, and you can go ahead and tighten up the new track bar stud and torque that to 200 foot-pounds of torque. Once that's tight, you can then go ahead and attach the steering stabilizer to that new stud. To do this, you're going to simply slide it over the new stud, and it's secured in place with an 18mm nut. Which, to tighten, you're going to torque it to 90 foot-pounds of torque. For the other end of the steering stabilizer, you're going to go ahead and center the steering stabilizer shaft and then clamp it to the new tie rod. To clamp it to the tie rod, you're going to simply place it on top of the tie rod, and you're going to take the other end of the clamp and secure it from the bottom up. To secure this, you're going to use the new 4 5mm hex bolts. You're going to tighten them up equally and torque them to 15 foot-pounds of torque. Then you're going to also go ahead and install the 2 5mm hex set screws. These are located in the middle. Again, these are also going to be torqued to 15 foot-pounds of torque. It is noted in the instructions at this point, it is good to go ahead and cycle the suspension a couple times to make sure that you have the clearance with the new position of the steering stabilizer. Now we're going to jump back to the drag link. To finish this off, the last thing you do is tighten up the jam nuts. Again, these are going to be adjusted anyways when you go to get an alignment done. Before we get on the road, the one thing we want to do is we do want to center our steering wheel, because if you do drive with a crooked steering wheel, it can cause some damage to some other components. To do this, you're going to go ahead and straighten your wheels on the ground. Then you should be able to see how far your steering wheel is actually off. To adjust this, we're going to go back to the drag link. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and loosen the 2 12.10mm bolts that are on the top of the drag. Once loose, you're then going to use a wrench and adjust the length of the drag link. As you can see, as you increase the length of the drag link, the steering wheel starts to rotate, coming back to center. Once you're happy with the position, all you have to do is go ahead and tighten up those 2 12.10mm bolts. To fully tighten them, you want to go ahead and torque them to 60 foot-pounds of torque. And at this point, the installation is finished, and the last thing you need to do is get an alignment. Well, guys, that is the installation of the TeraFlex HD drag link tie rod. Overall, the installation was actually pretty straightforward, and luckily, you don't need any special tools to do it. The only thing I would stress about the installation, and it's something that's very important, is I would stress that you make sure you torque every bolt. Again, guys, these two components are part of the steering for your vehicle, and if for some reason you experience a failure related to a bolt falling out, most likely you will lose control of your vehicle. We really don't want that to happen. So yeah, torque the bolts. And luckily, TeraFlex, in their instructions, actually provides you with the torque specs for every bolt that you're reinstalling. So all you have to do is follow those instructions, torque the bolts, and everything will be tight. At this point, guys, I guess what I have to do is answer the question for today's video, which is, did the TeraFlex HD drag link and tie rod improve the steering on my Jeep? And the best way to answer this is one word, and that is wow. Wow, because I have to say that these two components improved my steering so dramatically and way above my expectations. Look, I knew that they're going to be beefed up. I know they're heavier duty, and I know it's going to improve the steering, but I honestly didn't think it was going to be that much. I thought, it's going to be a little bit tighter, but I have to say the steering is tight. It's stiff in a good way. It's not like all over the place, and it's responsive. When I steer the vehicle, it goes exactly how I want. I love it. I have to say that this has given me the confidence to know that I can drive my Jeep again without thinking about my steering components. I feel that I can go into a corner at speed and it will hold up. Nothing will break and it will get through it. So really happy with it. There's a couple things I really like about the components as well. First, I'll talk about the thickness of both the tie rod and the drag link. The drag link is a forged and the tie rod is a solid piece, but both of them are a lot thicker than the factory components, which gives me the confidence to know that the bars are probably not going to be deformating or flexing as much as the stock ones, which means more control of the steering wheel. So really impressed with that. Also, being stronger means that if I go on the trails and they're up against something, it means there's less likely that they're going to bend. So really like the fact that they're a lot thicker and a lot stronger. The next thing I really like about the components is the ball joints. So both of the items use pretty much similar ball joints that I have to say are a lot bigger. And when you first get them out of the box and start moving them, you can tell how much more firm they're actually going to be. Also, there's a little bit of a pro and a con about the ball joints. The ball joints are greasable. This is a pro because in the event that your ball joints are starting to squeak or something, you can easily go ahead and add some grease to them to make them perform the way they should. But the con behind that is you have to remember to check the grease and to re-grease them because eventually the grease will wear out. Well, they can wear out. So you do have to remember to check them once in a while, especially if you are doing off-roading. The last thing I really like about this system has to do with the tie rod, and it has to do with the fact that the tie rod actually relocates your steering stabilizer. So the stock steering stabilizer is located behind the tie rod. With this kit, it relocates it above the tie rod. So it moves it away from the bottom of the ground, which means if you're off-roading, you won't strike it or you reduce the chance of striking it. And it's behind and protected by the heavy tie rod. So I really like that. It gives me the idea that if I need to approach something, I won't take out my steering stabilizer when approaching that obstacle. So really happy about that. And if anybody is concerned about their steering and watching this video, I highly recommend that you go and pick up a set of TeraFlex HD drag link and tie rod. It does come into the kit. You can buy it individually, but I suggest adding that to your vehicle if you are someone that feels that your vehicle is a little bit, floppy or loose in the steering. This will dramatically improve it. And to be honest, I kind of wish I picked these up earlier. I don't know why I waited. In my head, I thought it wouldn't do anything. But now that I've tried them, yeah, they definitely do make a difference. So if you are interested in finding out more details about these kits, what you can do is click the link in the description below. That will take you to the TeraFlex website, and you can get all the information about them. If you watched today's video and you saw the steps required to install them, and you feel that you won't be able to do it yourself, which is understandable because, sometimes the installation is just outside of your capabilities, then what I suggest, and if you're in the Westchester area, is you stop by the Donut Enterprise, and they'll be able to get you the part and install them at a really good price. So again, the Donut Enterprise, I'll put the link to their website below. You can either give them a call or stop by and see them in person. So guys, at this point, I don't have anything else to say. If you have any questions or comments about anything I've shown in today's video, feel free to comment below. I'll do the best to answer it. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. The more people that see this video, the more content I can create for you guys. So as usual, to wrap this video up, keep evolving, and we'll see you guys on the next video.